Today I'm looking at the Saucony Endorphin Speed after 100 miles. Hey guys, EDDBUD here, and I've reached the 100 mile point in the Saucony Endorphin Speed. Got to that point actually at great pace, didn't take long, picked this one up in July, I think it was the 7th of July, so it hasn't taken me too long. Today I'm going to give you my detailed opinions and views on this very popular shoe from Saucony. Quick stats first on this one. I paid 155 Earth credits, British pounds. 100 miles in, that's 160 kilometers. Paces anywhere between about 6:50 per mile down to about 8 minutes per mile. So quite a variation there. Everything from recovery paces for me up to tempo and then threshold efforts. This is a shoe that I bought myself with my own cash. No one's paying me to make this video. My honest views and opinions as usual. Runs were anywhere between about 3 miles up to about 15 miles in this shoe. You're looking at anywhere near 5k to about 24k. You guys will be familiar with the weight of the shoe, 260 grams in my UK size 11. That's about 9.1 ounces. We have an 8mm drop and of course the nylon plate rather than the carbon plate found in the Endorphin Pro. Upper first. Oh, he's holding up pretty well, this one actually. A lot of you commented, how do I keep my Endorphin Speeds so clean? But actually when you look at the front here, you can see there's quite a bit of dirt there, quite a bit of muck. Certainly put them through their paces. I found that the upper actually gave quite a bit over the first 20 miles of use. Now for me, there's slight bunching here in the toe box, you can probably see it there. Slight bunching where the upper's just sort of expanded a little bit. I've got quite a narrow foot, so I'm having to cinch the shoe a little bit more than I did at the very start. Lockdown is still excellent though. I really do like the slightly plush upper on this shoe. A little more padded than its more expensive brethren. Favourite part of the upper actually is the slightly padded leather effect tongue. Just positioned here to protect the top of the foot from those laces. Really do like that. Little attention to detail there. This isn't a shoe that I've needed to use a runner's knot at all. Lockdown's been fine really. Once those 20 miles are out the way, the shoe kind of settled down and it's been a real winner for me. The slight ridging to the laces does help them to bind together, so when you do tie the shoe, the laces don't tend to slip or become undone in any way. I haven't felt the need to use this strange elastic loop here at the front of the tongue. Just don't see how anyone could possibly lace the shoe to get the laces down that far to need to use that elastic loop. I just can't see how that would happen. 100 miles have been very comfortable, very enjoyable in the Saucony Endorphin Speed. No rubbing or discomfort issues of any kind to report. Smell test is needed though. Here we go. Still surprisingly good. I'll probably give that a 7 out of 10. Slight garden centre vibe still, but slightly used car perhaps as well. That's what it reminds me of. Holding up really well this one in the upper. Aside from the initial give in the upper over the first 20 miles, at 100 miles I'm going to give this a 2.7 out of 3 for upper. Midsole now. Over 100 miles. Seldom have I experienced a midsole that provides so much cushion, a forgiving underfoot feel, yet a really propulsive ride. The foam distribution here in the Saucony Endorphin Speed is absolutely perfect for me. Most of my runs in the Saucony Endorphin Speed have been faster paced efforts. In fact, some of my fastest efforts over those 10 and 15 mile test routes that I often use have been in this shoe. That's up against the likes of the Alpha Fly, the X%, Adizero Pro, the Meta Racer, the Fuel Cell TC. This one came out top. Over the 15 mile long run, I hit about 7 minutes 45 seconds per mile, so I think it was about an hour 56 along those lines, and then around 7 minutes 10 seconds per mile on that faster 10 mile test route, completing that in about 1 hour 11 minutes. Actually, I found the Endorphin Speed a little more forgiving on the long run than perhaps even the more expensive Endorphin Pro. But in fairness, there wasn't really much in it between these two shoes over the 15 mile long run. After some extensive running in both shoes, I think my opinion is that if you're a more able athlete firing off those faster paced times, you'll perhaps see more advantages from using the Endorphin Pro rather than the Speed due to the rigidity of the shoe. But I think for a great number of runners, the Endorphin Speed presents a slightly more forgiving, version perhaps. You've still got that fatigue lessening midsole there, and certainly I've achieved some times close to the next percent while using this shoe, but you've got a far more traditional running shoe upper here. So I think that's who it's going to benefit. Yes, it's a little heavier than the next percent, but I think a lot of people will find it vastly more stable. It's never really been an issue for me in this shoe. I've never really thought about stability of it. It's just been such a comfortable, well-performing shoe. I just want to wear it every day. I think many people will look at the price difference between this and something like the next percent. You know, £85 is a lot of money these days, especially right now. And I think a lot of people will probably be opting for this shoe rather than Nike's offering. Yes, I had that odd squeaking issue in the midsole a little while back in wet weather, but I wouldn't suggest that it makes wearing the shoe unbearable. Maybe water underneath the insole there, but it did appear to be coming from the midsole itself. I did find that the plate rigidity does lessen a little bit over time, but again that's stabilised just like the upper did, and after 100 miles really there's little to dislike about this shoe. I'm going to give it a 2.8 out of 3. Outsole now. So in terms of the outsole, I've examined it very carefully with a magnifying glass. I didn't really do that, and there's just very little degradation there at all in terms of that carbon rubber on the bottom. There's nothing at all really, apart from a little bit of wear in the toe off area here. Even the exposed foam here from the midsole's holding up really well. It's a little bit of discoloration, but hey, it's done 100 miles in quite wet and windy weather at times. It's quite amazing actually, this little wear at all in the midfoot. I can't see any. I've tested it over a variety of different terrains and surfaces. I would suggest that both the Pro and the Speed aren't the best in very wet weather. If you're running on a very smooth surface, you're going to be skating around. That carbon rubber really though is exceptional on dry roads and pavements, and only really falls down when there's any sort of moisture or water on the surface itself. I think as a pace shoe it is worth noting that issue of its grip in wet weather. If you're going to use it as a racing shoe, I don't think that the traction pattern is quite as good as the ones that you do find on the bottom of Adidas shoes. Continental rubber's still the king, but this stuff's very good, very durable. So a few points off there in terms of the outsole rubber. I'm going to take a few points off there and give it a 2.7 out of 3 for the outsole. Value now. So at £155 these come in a tad cheaper than the Endorphin Pro. I mean, the midsoles seem identical here apart from a slightly different paint job. Obviously you've got the slightly differing plate inside the midsole, a slightly thicker upper and a more significant heel counter at the back of the shoe. It's hard to fault them in terms of durability. They've held up really well. Nothing's coming apart on the shoe at all. The outsole's barely touched. I'd say the midsole's possibly feeling better than it did at the start. Oh, it's had some wear into it, it's broken in a little bit, it feels better and better every day. I think if people are looking for absolute performance, then it's probably better to shell out a few more earth credits and get the Endorphin Pro, a more rigid shoe, slightly lighter, and it's going to be a race option. But if you want something you can train in also, which is only a little bit heavier than its more expensive counterpart, this Speed is the one for you. You can go and run hard in this shoe and the next day the legs, the muscles feel fine. I think it's going to be the choice of many club runners out there. In terms of value, there's very little negative things to talk about with this shoe. I think perhaps if you're running in a wet climate all the time, then the Speed might not be the best option. But in terms of P-Bax based midsole fun, don't really need to look anywhere else. I think there is perhaps enough of a difference between the Endorphin Speed and the Endorphin Pro to warrant perhaps spending the extra cash. I think if you want the lightest, most propulsive option, then it's probably advisable to spend just a little more and get the Pro. That aside, some people might find it too rigid. I actually really like the Pro if I want to go all out. This one I can use on a daily basis. After 100 miles, I'm still going to give this shoe a 3 out of 3 for value. I think it is one of the best value shoes out there. If another shoe comes along, it's going to have to be pretty superb to beat this one. So same score on value as after my initial review. So if I've totted all the scores up correctly, I think we're left with 11.2 out of 12 after 100 miles for the Saucony Endorphin Speed. So an exciting, very comfortable and forgiving plated shoe. Aside from a little bit of give in the upper, slight loss of rigidity over time, and some slippery operation in some wet terrain, there's very little to dislike with this one. If you've been running in the Endorphin Speed from Saucony, can you think of anything that you would change about the shoe to improve it? There's very little I can think of. Perhaps a slightly different outsole pattern to increase traction? Let me know in the comments below. A musical interlude for you. I dug back out some more Aztec Camera from the collection. This album, called Love, was released back in 1987. I wouldn't suggest it's one of Aztec Camera's best albums, but it does feature two of Aztec Camera's best tunes. Everybody probably knows Somewhere in My Heart, an absolutely fantastic slice of 80s pop. But you've also got the really beautiful acoustic Killamont Street, a song which I believe is all about either a bus station or perhaps a train station in Glasgow, Scotland. I could be wrong there. If you're from Scotland and Killamont Street isn't related to that, then I'm very sorry. But I'm pretty sure that's the general gist of the track. Roddy Frame is a really underrated guitar player in my opinion, so do go and check out some of his solo stuff or some of the early Aztec Camera stuff. You won't be disappointed. Righty ho, it's just about all for today. I hope you've enjoyed today's 100-mile review of the Saucony Endorphin Speed. I very much enjoyed wearing that shoe. I might even have to get another pair of them in the other colourway, that black colourway. It really does look nice. So a couple of updates for you. I have managed to secure a pair of the Nike Air Zoom Tempo Next Percent. Should have those at the start of next week, so I can get out on my initial run and give you my thoughts and opinions on that one. Also incoming, we have the Asics Dynablast, so really looking forward to testing that one out. A slightly lighter version of the Nova Blast by the looks of it, hopefully with less upper. Thanks for tuning in. If you haven't done so already, hit that subscribe button and click the bell below for notifications of when I launch those new videos. I'm like a running shoe Elon Musk. Not really, but that's the first thing that came into my head. It really helps the channel out if you'd give this video a thumbs up like, and also share it with your running buddies. My name's EDDBUD, and I'll be seeing you.